أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers to the show, think about it. As always, if you like the show, you like the content, please do subscribe. And if you have any suggestions for us, please do. Leave a comment and let us know what you'd like to hear about. We do our best to do our research on it. Today's topic is one that refers to the new generation as well as the older people who are available right now who have high positions at the workplace, who have actually shaped the current corporate world the way it is. Yes, we're talking about businessmen, we're talking about principals of schools, we're talking about ministers, we're talking about people who are in leadership positions and roles. Now, before I begin and I go forward, remember one thing always. Leadership is a choice. Leadership is a responsibility. Leadership is not a rank. Because within leadership, you have to understand, it comes with great sacrifice and commitment. Leadership actually means that when things go right, you give the credit away. When things go wrong, you take all the accountability. That is what leadership is. Now, today's topic is one that relates a lot to every single age group. So please, do listen intentfully and carefully. Because we're going to be talking about a concept that was introduced in the 1970s. It was practiced in the 80s. It was implemented properly within all the books and policies of business in the 90s. And today, it is a standard that people follow. It's not questioned. Nobody thinks it's wrong. They think it's a part of the principle or the constitution of doing business or being in the corporate society. Dear viewers, I'm talking about something called shareholder supremacy. We've done a show about this before as well, and we've talked about this, but today I can't urge it enough and I can't stop talking about it enough because it is something that affects every single individual, young or old. Shareholder supremacy was a concept that was brought in the 1970s. Now, you have to understand something. The 1970s, the 1980s, and the 1990s are known as boom years. Those were boom years. Boom years mean, basically, businesses were expanding. Technology was developing. All right? There were a lot of opportunities available for people. Saturation in markets didn't exist. It didn't happen yet. So things were still coming up. Have a look at all the different companies. Apple, Microsoft. Have a look at companies such as Dell, computer companies. Have a look at Sony. Have a look at companies which are related to businesses. So we talk about different hotel chains. Look at even Donald Trump and his empire that he started up. Everything took off 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's when everything took off. Because those were boom years. Now I'm going to paint a small picture for you. And I want you to use your logic as much as you can to understand where it's coming from and whether it makes sense. Let's say that you open up a business. Your business is selling ice cream. And your business, your target market, is the people that live within your city. Now let's say you live in a city of 100 people. So if you have 100 people in the city, that means you have a potential, a market, a target of 100 people. Your entire goal is to make sure that 100 people buy your ice cream. Now, you might not be so successful initially. You open up your business, you open up a shop, you open up a small ice cream parlor. It might be small, you might make it into a bigger building, whatever the case is. You get 20 customers the first month. You get 25 customers the next. It remains 25 the following month. But overall in the year, you notice that you have somewhere between 45 to 50 customers a month. That means you're hitting half or a little bit less than that of what the target you have in your mind. So, expansion makes sense. You still have 50 to 55 people that have been untouched, who don't know about your product, which is your ice cream. So you come up with strategies. You come up with advertisements. You come up with something. You hire a team that can do the job. Now, every time your customers increase, your revenue increases. When your revenue increases, that means you're making money. When you're making money, you can afford renovations, you can afford to hire people, you can afford to put people in different places. You can also create an emerging position for somebody as well. All of these things make sense because all businesses do them. It's absolutely fine. Whether you are a school and you work in a district and you know these many children live over there, that's your target. Whether you have a hotel, you know these many people live here, or whatever your international market is and your target is, you know exactly how to go about it. Whether it be a media studio, just as this one. You know how many people are around, you know how many viewers you need, how many people should watch the show, how many people should watch this show or that show, what should be popular, and where. All of these things factor into your business model. It's absolutely healthy and normal to do so. But what happens when that ice cream parlor ends up having 100 customers a month? When it has 100 customers a month and the city is the only target, let's say that they can't expand from the city. Let's say this city is the world and you have 100 people. Once you have your 100 customers, can you get more? Does that make sense? Can you get more? No, you can't. At that moment is when the model that I'm about to tell you about, shareholder supremacy, is what ruins everything. Shareholder supremacy means maximizing shareholder value. That means whoever opened up the business, whoever is invested in the business, people who are not necessarily coming into work or don't work at all within the operation of that business or that corporation or that company. They're people who just have shares or stocks or something that basically tells them that they have some form of ownership of that business or corporation. Maximizing shareholder values is very, let's say, weird to think about today. Why? Because maximizing shareholder values is saying that you have a cricket team and you're holding the fans' thinking, ideas, opinions to a higher priority than the players. You're putting their needs ahead of the players. It doesn't make sense. In boom years, when your market could expand, maybe a model such as shareholder supremacy can work. But these are no longer boom years. We're not at an area or an age where things are expanding that quickly. Technology might be developing, but it doesn't mean we're expanding. We're in an age where things have become so saturated that people who have PhDs, people who are professors, people who are medical doctors, people who are medical practitioners, people who are dentists, people who are teachers, people who are architects, engineers, lawyers, all across the board, many of them are not doing work in their own profession or scope. In fact, just a statistic from last week states that less than 60% of people are actually doing things according to their scope. So let's say you're a person who's a businessman, let's say you're a person who's a lawyer, let's say you're a person who's a doctor or a professor. You might be very well qualified, you might have actually worked in your scope before. You change countries, you go somewhere, you immigrate to Canada, you go to America, you go to the UK, something. It's not often that you get a job within your own scope immediately. Not often that you get an entry-level job within your scope either. Which actually means that the market is saturated. And shareholder supremacy is something that exists. Now, let's see how this relates to the younger generation. As a teacher, as somebody who has children of his own, as someone who has been a child and has been given a lot of advice and guidance from different people who are older than I am, my parents, uncles, people that you meet at gatherings, people that you just come across when you're standing at a supermarket or something of the sort, people give you advice and they tell you that you're the leader of tomorrow. You guys are the leaders of tomorrow. We've had so many people come to our schools when we were young, tell us that we're the leaders of tomorrow. Tell us that we're going to change the system. We're going to do something. What about the leaders right now? Make no mistake, you are the leaders of today. The people who are running these corporations, the CEO of Apple, the CEO of Microsoft, Facebook, whether you're looking at universities, the dean of departments, the rectors, all right, you're looking at ministers of education, of health, of science, of transport, and God knows what. Those are the leaders of today. And what you're doing is you're working with a business model that is unhealthy. And why is it unhealthy today? Because what ends up happening is because shareholder supremacy asks for some form of advantage or profit for your shareholders, maximizing their value, right? Value, maximizing. Basically what that means is that every single fiscal year, they need to have more money on the balance sheets than they did the previous year. And this is a practice that 99% of companies do around the world, because it has become a standard policy of today. And nobody questions it. Like I said before, people believe that it is a constitution of business. It is not a constitution of business. It was a practice that was brought in, and because it looked good to people who had money so that they could make more money, it went forward. And that is where the term, because of all the saturation happening and the money coming out more, that's where the term, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, comes from. The system is not working properly. So what ends up happening is that if a company has 50 employees and their target of the consumers that they want or the customers that they want, whoever they're providing their service to or their product to, is, let's say, 100 people. Okay, a year or two, you have 50 people. Then you have 70 people. Then you have 80 people. So you're expanding. And whoever your shareholders are maximizing their values as well. They're making more money, naturally. But when you hit 100, you can't expand further. Over here, the term sustainability comes in, where you need to be able to maintain those customers instead of looking for more. But what happens is that because of shareholder supremacy, those people who have an investment within the company, those people who need to look good in their balance sheets and have a lot of money by the end of the year or make a profit, even if it's $1 more than the previous year, still need that money. So what happens is that because you have your target market, you're trying to maintain it, but you're working with shareholder supremacy, you end up being unjust with your employees. First, what happens, maybe employees were given a really good health insurance package as well, or a benefit. Those benefits are slashed, they're reduced, or they're compensated, not really compensated, compensation means something equal, but they're changed with something that is much lower until they're non-existent. Maybe employees had company phones and mobiles that they used to use. They're taken away. Just so all of these things balance the books, so people who are shareholders are making more money. This concept of cutting things from your employees is called cost cutting. This is something which is a very popular phenomenon. You can find it in every single business. You can go and Google it as well. You'll find it happening in almost every single business. In fact, every single ministry as well. So, when this starts happening, injustice takes place. So much so that when all the benefits are gone, and you still have to make more money, you still have to show that you're making more money, you have to lay people off. Because if you lay one person off, then that's, let's say you're paying a person a salary of $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Granted, it's already taxed and the person pockets probably $2,600, $2,700, maybe $2,900, maybe $3,000 a month. But when that person is gone, the company on the books have saved $4,000 a month. So, oh yeah, we've made some more money. And then it goes further. When the year passes by, we need to make more money. So that's what layoffs mean. Until somebody comes up with some form of proposal or strategy to get more customers, to expand business somewhere, somehow. And then everybody can take a sigh of relief that, okay, we're not going to lose our jobs. But this is the very reason why the corporate environment is within a dilemma. Imagine this, that you're in a society, in a corporation, or within a company that definitely only cares about money, making a profit, moving forward, making sure their shareholders look very good, which is the foundation of their business. So basically, even if you have a nice, innovative business, you're trying to bring some change into the world, you're trying to do something better for society. At the end of the day, your business books of today, the ones that have adopted this shareholder supremacy model, are taking you away from your cause. They're keeping you at making money, and that is it. So it's all about money now. And we all might have heard the saying, money makes the world go round. Well, why wouldn't it? When the very policies that people have come up with, that people practice today, are outdated. They're from the 1970s. For a new time and a new generation, and for every single time and every single phase, when things are changing, we need to change the system as well. So what ends up happening is within the corporate environment dilemma, is that when people don't know how to do their job, or when people are confused about what they're supposed to do or how to handle a task, they're too afraid to raise their hands and say that I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to do this, I am scared, I'm confused, because the moment they say something like that, there's a target on their back. Performances within companies have been falling down. Now, when I say they've been falling down, I don't mean businesses aren't making money. I don't mean businesses aren't making profits. You come up with a new iPhone, people are in the line to get it. You come up with a new mobile from Android, people are in the line to get it. You come up with products, people are there to buy them. All right? You have sales of cars, which are going over the roof, especially within the pandemic time. Houses, the market has gone insane. Houses have, they've ascended up higher as well. Houses that were for 500,000 in 2015 are now for 1.1 million. So they've doubled and even more in their, valuation in the past 5 to 6 years. So no, people are making money, but the corporate environment working on the shareholder supremacy model have caused employees to be at unease at all times. And because of that, there's a decline in performance. People are not having the best output within companies. People aren't able to do their best. When businesses say, how can I get the most out of my people? That statement itself is derogatory. Getting the most out of your people is squeezing them. That's not what someone should say. It's supposed to be, how do I get my people to perform at their natural best? To make sure that the skills that they've learned at university, all the investment and time that they put down in their education, how can they actually make that shine? How can they be comfortable in doing so? That is supposed to be the statement. So what ends up happening is that performances aren't good. People make mistakes quite a lot, but nobody admits it. And because of that, what happens to corporate environments? What's the dilemma? The dilemma is that your company is not performing well. People are not sharing things because they don't know what they're doing and they feel the target's going to be at their back, that if they do share, all right? So obviously, you're not going to have the best output, you're not going to have the best performance. And things are going to go up and down. And this is exactly why loyalty doesn't exist in a company either. When loyalty doesn't exist in a company, it's because everything was about money to begin with. You have companies that have seminars and conferences telling people that we're looking for loyal employees. We appreciate your loyalty. Your loyalty means everything. Who is loyal to this company? But the company isn't loyal to them. Because I'm sorry, if you fall on the wrong side of the spreadsheet at the end of the fiscal year, which is already arbitrary, it's a man-made thing, you're fired. We cannot guarantee a job for you, or what the company, or what your future looks like with this company or organization. This is something so scary and so important and crucial to look at in today's time that it's quite ridiculous if people aren't focusing on it. We need to be able to approach a Minister of Commerce. We need to go to the Chamber of Commerce. We need to be able to talk to them about this stuff. We need to approach the Ministry of Education so people can actually be educated and more aware of these types of issues that are taking place. And I'm not the only one who's talking about this. These ideas have existed for the past 10, 20, 30 years even. Even when shareholder supremacy was made, people projected that 30, 40 years from now, it won't be boom years anymore. This model is not going to work. But when people see money ahead of them and the rich see that they can get richer, nobody really questions it. Today's the day we actually put a question up forward. So even if companies provide training to their people and they promote them at their office or whatever they're doing, they haven't been trained to be at that managerial level. So you don't have a leader, you have a manager, because they haven't been trained to be a leader. They haven't been trained to have that responsibility of not doing the job, but being in charge of the person who does the job, of taking care of the person who does the job. And yes, obviously they were promoted so they were good at what they did, so they end up micromanaging. And so those new people who are at entry level, who are doing that skilled work, they feel frustrated that their managers or people who are above them are micromanaging their work. Why are they doing this? They're not giving me room to breathe. It's because they were actually really good at what they did, and that's why they got promoted. But when they got promoted, they weren't really told how to take care of those who are in their charge. And that is a dilemma that needs to be solved. We'll be back with more on this after the break. Keep tuned. Think about it.
Foods, now open in Barhaven area, Ottawa. Pick up or dine in. Also available on Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, and DoorDash.
GTA का सबसे ज्यादा देखा जाने वाला टीवी चैनल आवाज इंटरटेनमेंट के साथ मिलकर बनाए आपके बिजनेस को और भी बेहतर। हम आपके कंपनी या बिजनेस को एक अनोखे अंदाज में पेश करेंगे जिससे आपके बिजनेस में और ज्यादा इजाफा होगा। हमारे फेसबुक, यूट्यूब और वेबसाइट को रोजाना लाखों लोग देखते हैं। हमारे पास हर किसी के एडवर्टाइजमेंट की जरूरत के हिसाब से पैकेज अवेलेबल हैं। आज ही 4167869809 पर कॉल करें और अपना एडवर्टाइजमेंट बुक कराएं। आवाज इंटरटेनमेंट, आवाज आपकी, चैनल हमारा। जुड़िए हमसे।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the show. Think about it. We left off talking about the corporate dilemma and the fact that shareholder supremacy is a model that was introduced and implemented in the 1970s, and over the past few decades it's become something that is standard policy, and all companies follow it as though it's a constitution of business, even though it is not. It is an outdated model, it is bad for people, and it is bad for business. And it needs to be something that is addressed, it needs to be something that is taken care of. And changed, obviously. Because if you take a look at corporate culture and the way things are, people don't know what they're doing. You go and you ask a CEO or a person who is in a leadership role, any person within a leadership role, about what their priority is, or who their target is, or who they have to take care of, and they say, our priority is our customer. Our priority is, we have to take care of our customer. Honestly speaking, how many leaders, how many people in leadership roles actually interact with the customer? Do you want to know the figure? 0. They just don't. Leadership takes care of those people who take care of those people who take care of those people who down the line, whoever it is, actually deal with the customer. Leaders are in charge of those people who are in charge of those people who are in charge of taking care of the customer. So there's a dilemma over here. People don't even know what business they're in. People don't even know what their roles are. And that is a sad fact. With that, we need to be able to educate society and understand where we stand. You talk about the future generation, how they're leaders. Imagine this. The new generation are expected to grow up, go into this saturated market, wherever they are in the world, find a job, build relationships with people, get out of the technology that they already have, that they so often depend on, all right? Build relationships, have trust, build loyalty with a company, and go reach a pinnacle of something. How is that possible? How is that possible? So the leaders of today, whoever's watching this, who might be a leader or in a leadership position or a role, we need to make a change. We need to be able to set aside shareholder supremacy. We need to be able to understand that it's not about your head counts in your company. It's about your heart counts. We need to practice empathy as well. Instead of walking up to an employee and telling them that you haven't performed very well for the past, 1 month or 6 months or whatever quarter, whatever arbitrary projection a company has. Arbitrary means man-made. So a company comes up with its own policy that we want to be really good in 3 months or really good in 6 months, or we want to be number one, we want to beat our competition, which by the way is not a thing. Businesses have existed before every single company on this earth today that is active. And business, the term business, will continue to exist after all these companies are gone. Inshallah, if time prolongs that way. So you can never be number one at business because it's not a finite game. It's not a finite match. Finite means you have a dedicated time of start and a dedicated time of end, and you measure it. It's not arbitrary. So today, if a company stands up and says, oh, we're the number one telecom company in the world, by what criteria? What's the criteria that shows you that you're number one? Is it by employees? Is it by services? Is it by your revenue? Is it by your headcount? Is it by the promotion that you have? Is it by your customer base? Is it by how many countries you operate in? Is the criteria? And guess what? I'm in the same business. I didn't agree to those criteria. I didn't agree to anything that you're saying right now, so how can you be number one? Being number one in business is a very silly thing to say because you can never be number one. You can be number one for a while until somebody else comes along. Nokia, one of the biggest mobile company phones. A company that in the late 90s and early 2000s was unparalleled. Nobody knew how to beat Nokia. Nokia was there connecting people. Today, how many of us have a Nokia phone? You can be number one for a while, but you're in this as an infinite game, not a finite one. And infinite games means that you keep using your resources to keep the game in play. The rules keep changing. When rules keep changing, that means with every phase, things change. Take a look at World War I and World War II. You didn't use the same strategies in both of the wars. You didn't have the same people in both of the wars. You didn't have the same equipment in both of the wars. You didn't have the same strategies or policies in both of the wars. Then why are we having business policies from the 1970s running within the 21st century? Doesn't make sense. That was a different time, and today is a different time. So what leaders need to do is they need to stand up and need to challenge status quo. That is a criteria of being a leader. Challenging status quo means that whatever formula is not working, something that shows that people are unstable, not understanding where they stand, unable to get a job within their own scope, or when they're within their own scope, they're trying to make sure that their head is down, they're under the radar just so they can get that paycheck and keep working the way they are. They're not very passionate about it because all their passion has been kicked out of them and beaten out of them because they have to meet the company's arbitrary projections. And if they don't meet them, the future is never certain for them. I can give you examples of different companies that have done so. A company had 40 people working in a back office, which included HR, some exams department, something to do with, marketing and sales and whatnot. They had 40 people working. And because they couldn't meet their arbitrary projections, what somebody set back in the 1970s or 80s, that this is how much money, or this is the ratio, or the percentage that this company should make by the end of every single year, and they weren't meeting it. So what they did is they announced something called restructuring, which is another fancy word for layoffs. So they said that, we only have 20 positions open now, but everybody's welcome to apply. So from 40 people, you've just cut off half of the people's salaries, half of the people's jobs. So only 20 people will be hired again. And what's going to happen to those people who don't get the job? They're going to go home and they're going to tell their families that we can't provide because my company couldn't meet its arbitrary projections. We're using somebody's livelihood to balance the books. That is the most disgusting thing that I have ever heard in my life. And that is why we're in trouble. And everything a company does, everything a business does is some form of communication. You talk about loyalty and you want loyal people to work with you. The moment you announce a layoff, loyalty is gone. Everybody's scared. Obviously, nobody's going to share that they don't know what they're doing. Nobody's going to share that they're having difficulties. Nobody's going to share that they're confused. Because the moment they do, target on their back. If there's another round, they're gone. So what the new generation needs to do, the younger people right now, people who are 16, 17, 18, inshallah, they're going to go to college, they're going to go to university, they're in high school right now, even in middle school. We have a lot of brilliant young minds, mashallah, every single human being, child, young, old, middle-aged, whatever you are, there's some skill that you have that you need to tap into. Some kids, some adults, some people find their skill along somewhere or sometime within their lives. Not only do they need to tap into it, but they need to be confident within it. Secondly, if you're a young person walking into a corporate environment and you're just starting out, inshallah, you have a good backing behind you, you have a family that loves you, cares for you, and can provide for you too, you need to be able to stand in a position where you could question these principles and ethics that businesses have, because these are not ethics anymore. For those people who are in leadership position and leadership roles, they need to take a hard look at how their business is running and how their environment is actually moving forward. Because are you actually moving forward? Are you running around in circles? Or are you saturated so much that you started taking a step back and now you're actually moving backwards? All of these things are to think about. Thank you for tuning in. Inshallah, see you guys next week. Think about it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.